Well, I want to bring in someone new for you tonight here, a Virginia farmer by the name of Daniel Turner. He's part of an energy campaign called Power the Future. He's written a fascinating column on the Fox News website in which he makes the argument that with the fuel crisis and the situation in the Middle East, the left have all of a sudden gone quite remarkably quiet on the need to save the planet by using renewable energy, and instead are opting with getting oil wherever they can, however they can. We've seen that here in Australia, and Daniel Turner joins me from the U.S. to talk more about this phenomenon. Daniel, first of all, I want to wish you a happy Earth Day. I think I missed it this year, but then again, I missed it probably for the last 20 or 30 years here. Tell us more about what you have found and what your campaign about energy in the future is all about.
So I started Power the Future to advocate for rural energy workers. I'm very close to coal country, West Virginia, and the climate movement has displaced hundreds of thousands of coal workers. It's plunged them into poverty. It's ruined their towns and their neighborhoods and their culture. And there's the energy component. There's the national security component, right? We pay more for electricity. We are dependent upon communist China for these crappy solar panels and wind turbines from Scandinavia. But the real purpose of it is that these communities across America that provided a product that we need have been decimated by the radical climate left, and we're just completely worse off for it. And you mentioned Earth Day. This is their high holiday. I don't know what it was in Australia, but in America, no one celebrated it because the climate movement's been proven to be a total fraud, total failure, total liars, and their policies have been detrimental to world peace. And so, they are all hiding their heads until they get another Joe Biden in office when they can come back out of the hellhole they've created for us.
And Daniel, I mean, you talk about this huge movement, this environmental movement. You mentioned China there. Where is the money coming from that had been pushing this up until, very, very recently? Is it coming from China, or who's behind this?
Oh, absolutely. Mostly from communist China. America has these awful laws that you're allowed to hide money in offshore accounts and then wire it to your quote unquote nonprofit, and you don't have to disclose where the money comes from. And China is smart to use these rules to their advantage. China is very crafty, right? And they have fomented this huge climate movement in the United States because what is the result of it? The result is you get people like Joe Biden who shut down American coal, shut down American oil and gas, and buy these crappy products from China. Yeah, forget about the slave labor component, right? Forget about the human rights violation and the fostering of communism, right? They just don't work. They're intermittent, they're expensive, they're detrimental to the environment. They're made with slave labor camps. So China loves the climate movement because it silences the opposition. If people like, you and I try to speak about it, what do? We are denier, right? They call us climate deniers and they throw paint at our houses. And so it's a brilliant move on China. But the evil left is always brilliant, right? They're evil, they're bad people, but they are definitely crafty and smart.
Yeah, well, look, just on that China issue, too, one of the things that I've noticed about the movement is that so much of what's called for is actually just winding up being a wealth transfer from Western countries like the U.S. and Australia to China, and a big component of that is EVs. Has all of this energy crisis, though, people are now saying, oh, maybe people should be getting into electric vehicles now, again, with the oil shock. What's your response to that?
Yeah, this is the first point I make in the op-ed that you referenced, and I very much appreciate you referencing it and coming on to talk about it. But the first proof I have that the climate movement is dying is the EV markets, because as soon as government stepped out of the equation, when the government mandates disappeared because President Trump won re-election, so the government mandates to purchase an EV disappeared. The government subsidies for EVs disappeared, right? We were giving Americans $7,500 to buy an electric vehicle. Why? Because Joe Biden thought it was a good idea. We were subsidizing companies like Ford and Stellantis and General Motors to build these crappy EVs, right? And so once that equation disappeared, the government mandate, the government subsidies, the market dried up. And it's terrible that people have lost their job in EV markets. Don't get me wrong. There are thousands of Americans who are out of work because we have stopped subsidizing this economy. And I don't rejoice in that. But goodness gracious, we have to ask, why the hell was the government subsidizing this market to begin with, right? We're not Keynesians. We can't operate in a way that government decides winners and losers and what markets deserve to thrive. So the first example that the EV market is total bogus, total nonsense, is that once government was out of the equation, no one wanted to buy this product. Buy what you want. I'm not anti-EV. I would never drive one. But buy what you want. But goodness gracious, keep the government out of the picture.